We're here to thank people who have included Jewish National Fund in their legacy plans and those who are thinking about doing the same. Without your partnership, without your help, we could not do the work that we do in Israel. Jewish National Fund has been operating for 122 years. In the early 1900s, that really involved purchasing and maintaining the land of Israel. Who here in this room has either received a tree planted in Israel or purchased one for somebody else? That's a tradition that's carried on for more than a century. Did you know that Israel's the only country in the world that has more trees today than it did in the last century? So does anybody here know why we planted the trees? Who knows, Elise Golden Berkeley? No?
No, I know it. Because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yep. So it was not an environmental issue. It was actually a legal issue. Prior to 1948, in order to own land in Israel, you had to buy it and then settle, a legal term, the land. The cheapest and easiest way to do this was to plant trees and have them last for more than 7 years. And with your help, we have done that. As most of you know, today Jewish National Fund is so much more than trees. We do work from the north to the south, east to west, all across Israel. Our goal is to move 300,000 people into the north, into the Galil and the Golan Heights, and 500,000 people down into the south. If you have been to Israel lately and traveled the country, you cannot help but see signs that say Jewish National Fund USA, buildings, reservoirs, communities, all across the land of Israel. It's thanks to you that we're able to do this. I'm proud to announce that 10 years ago, our CEO, Russell Robinson, decided that we were going to raise in America $1 billion, billion with a B. As of December 31st, 2022, 1 year early, we have passed the $1 billion mark. And we could not obviously have done that without you. You are the rocks underneath our movement, our work. There are over 140 programs and projects in Israel. It would take me all day to tell you what we're doing, but I would at least like to touch on a few, just to give you a sampling of what we've accomplished in the last year. Almost every program and project that we undertake in Israel has a common goal: to increase the population in a given area, expand the infrastructure, economic security, even increase tourism. One area of concentration that we've been concerned with is Kiryat Shimona, which is very far in the north, near 3 miles off the border of Lebanon. If you were with me last year, you might have heard me speak about the Galilee Culinary Institute, which is going to be an international culinary institute like the one in Napa, which will be opening in the fall of 2023. If you're like me and you don't really want to become a chef, but you like to take cooking classes over a weekend, and you're traveling in Israel after the fall, please check it out and take a cooking class there. Just down the road, we have built the Margalit Food Tech Center. This is going to be a research incubator and workspace for those in the agricultural and tech industries. It'll bring together research and development companies, tech, and even hospitality under the same roof. It will help with Israel's vision to become a leader in food technology. The companies will come together forming economic and business partnerships. One story of success is Studio Galil, which has raised over $25 million and opened 30 companies in Kiryat Shimona. Looking now towards the south, along the Gaza border, We do a lot of work in this area, from Sderot, which is 5 miles off the Gaza border, sort of towards the north of the Gaza border, all the way down to the southern edge, Chalutza, 5 miles off the Gaza-Sinai border. The people living there are Chalutzim, or pioneers, and they are living there protecting our Jewish homeland. Chalutza is striking. 15 years ago, it was nothing but sand and 30 people. Today, 3 towns, 400 people. But they need a place to gather, to communicate with each other. Youth education opportunities, growth for adults. To that end, we are building the Shlomit Community Center, which will be a 2-story, 40,000 square foot community center. It will have facilities for music and art and technology, even a hydrotherapy pool, and of course an auditorium. With your help, we are helping the people of Chalutza. Unfortunately, this area sees a lot of bombing from Gaza. With your help, Jewish National Fund USA has built hundreds of bomb shelters in this community. But we paint them with bright colors and inviting scenery, because if the signal goes off, they have 15 seconds to get into a bomb shelter. If you're a child, that can be traumatizing. But now, because of the bright colors and the scenery, they enter the bomb shelters without fear. Actually, a curious thing has happened. The bomb shelters are now points of reference in the community. The kids will say, oh, let's meet at the bomb shelter with a zebra on it. Even in times of trouble, Jewish National Fund USA and you and people like you across the country are there for them. Elan is going to touch upon anti-Semitism and what we can do about it today. Jewish National Fund USA has many programs and projects to promote Zionism, to combat Jew hatred. One of those is we spend a lot of time and effort getting people to Israel, tours, trips, missions. We spend a significant amount of time, effort, and energy on our younger generations, our hope. We subsidize trips like Dream Israel and Alternative Spring Break. We support a birthright program called Shorashim, which helps Jewish youth go to Israel for free for 10 days. And on that trip, the American youth are joined by their Israeli counterparts. So not only do they learn about the land of Israel, they form connections with the people there. Jewish National Fund also has a free trip for non-Jewish college students. Similar to Birthright, but on this trip, it's non-Jewish students. They have to apply for the program. We are only able to send 80 kids there a year. Because the application process is very competitive, the people who end up going are leaders on their college campuses. So the president of their sorority, the captain of the track team, the editor of the newspaper. Because it is our hope they will come back and continue to be leaders as they grow into young adults. They travel through Israel, meeting political and business professionals, getting to know the land of Israel and the people, and they're able to form opinions that's not just fed to them from the media about the true Israel. Time and time again, success is shown. They come back as ambassadors for Israel. In 2017, a young man named Fabian Donate applied for and went on Caravan for Democracy. Who knew when he came back and said the trip was life-changing, that it would be life-changing for thousands of people living in Nevada. Why Nevada? Fabian Donate is a senator in Nevada, standing up for Israel in the work that he is doing. Without Caravan for Democracy, he would never have been able to go to Israel or possibly even have had the inclination. So we thank you for that. Our third program, getting people to Israel, is we have a faculty fellowship. So the faculty fellowship 400 US faculty members apply each year for 70 spots to travel through the country. And not only do they meet people from Israel, but we connect them with their professional peers in colleges up and down Israel. They come back to their campuses and they have events and talk about the positive things they've seen. And as you can imagine, this is pretty significant because they may have had questions about Israel and Zionism before they went. But I think the true measure of success of this program is that they continue their relationships with their professional peers. A joint paper on molecular biology, a project on cancer research, even a program involving music and the arts. These US professors are showing us what true collaboration looks like between the US, and Israel. With your help, we are sending multitudes of people to Israel. Thank you. I believe our most shining example of promoting Zionism today is Alexander Muss High School in Israel, which is a study abroad program, high school accredited program for high schoolers here in America. They go for a few weeks, up to a semester. They take their regular classes, AP biology, calculus, literature, but they learn 4,000 years of Jewish history. And then they make Israel their living classroom. And they travel the country visiting the sites that they studied. We are giving them the answers as they go on to college, graduate school, even the workspace. They'll have answers when people question them about Israel, about their Zionism. Thanks to people like you in this room, they no longer have to stay silent. You have given them their voice. We're sold out every year at Alexander Muss High School. 1,500 kids go. We don't want to turn any kid away. To that end, we're opening a second campus in Beersheba in June of this year, with plans to expand to an even larger campus in the same area in the next few years, the World Zionist Village. The World Zionist Village, once built, will have the larger Muss campus, the second campus. They'll have gap year programs for kids between high school and college, internships for college and post-college students, adult education, and they've even asked us to have a machinot program, which is the gap year Israelis take between high school and the army. It is our hope that the World Zionist Village will promote Zionism not just here in America, but all over the world, as people interact on a global scale, all in Beersheba, Israel. These, of course, are just a few of the things we have done in the past year, and we could not have done it without your help. And I want to thank you for your partnership and your continued generosity for this. So as Fred mentioned, I am the Plan Giving Director for the West Coast. What is that? I help people make gifts while also considering the US tax laws. There's no one answer. It really depends on your own situation, your family's needs, and what you hope to achieve with your philanthropy. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I do. And I am going to touch on tax law. I will try not to make it too painful. But I know that people like you in this room give from your heart to Kun Olam, repairing our world one day at a time. You can, of course, donate appreciated assets like stock. You get two tax benefits, a tax deduction and capital gains tax benefits because the stock is a gift. You can make a donation to Jewish National Fund and get a fixed income as high as 9.7% for your life. You get a tax deduction, and in the end, you help Israel. That's called a charitable gift annuity. Make a gift, get a tax deduction, a fixed income for the rest of your life, and also benefit Israel. Jewish National Fund has one of the largest charitable gift annuity programs in the country, over 2,000 agreements, people helping themselves and in helping Israel at the same time. Many of you may be familiar with the concept of a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD, out of your IRA or your retirement account. What is that? You can make a gift up to $100,000 per year to Jewish National Fund. It will count against your required minimum distribution, your RMD, the amount that you have to take out according to the government, and you won't pay tax on the distribution. So this is money that you put into your account tax-free 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's been growing ever since. You've never paid any tax on it. The US government is allowing you to make a gift with those funds, and the funds will never be taxed ever. In January of 2023, this month, past month, a few months, a new law was passed. For the first time ever, you can take your IRA money from your retirement account and make a one-time $50,000 gift to a charitable gift annuity. So this is new. Before, if you took a distribution from your IRA, you would have to pay the income tax on it to fund the charitable gift annuity. No longer. Up to $50,000, you get a fixed income, and it counts against your RMD. So one donation, it counts against your RMD, your required minimum distribution, benefits yourself with a fixed income, helps Israel. One of the easiest ways to leave your legacy, your mark on the world, is through your will or trust. You could give a certain amount, a percentage, a specific thing, and the benefit is that the gift will not be included in your taxable estate. Jewish National Fund teamed up with Jewish Future Pledge. Jewish Future Pledge is a non-profit, which is nonpartisan, out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they ask that if, not that you should, just if, you are going to make a donation to charities through your will or trust, that half of those dollars go to Jewish causes, Israel, Jewish National Fund. I don't think that the point of Jewish Future Pledge is to collect signatures. I think the point is to help people think about what they want to do with their legacy dollars. And we as Jews should be thinking about that, especially in light of what the world looks like today. It makes you think. When I talk to people, oftentimes we start talking about the here and now, not just the future. And they will tell me that they have been making donations to Jewish causes, Jewish National Fund, Israel for years, but their children and grandchildren really don't get it. And I ask them, have you told your children your why, the story behind your generosity? I was with a gentleman a few weeks ago, late 70s, and he has been donating to JNF Israel for years, and quite frankly, in substantial amounts. And he said to me that his son was going to take over. They have a family foundation, and he wasn't sure if the donations would continue once his son took over, because his son was just not that into Israel. I was surprised. I said, don't you share this information with your son? I mean, you live in the same city, he must know what you're doing. And he said he knows about the amounts I give, he doesn't know why I give it. And he shared with me his story. His father had been a Holocaust survivor. He had made his way to the United States after the war. He was from Poland. And he told me his father never spoke about the war in their house, but he knew it had affected his father in a grave and deep way. However, his father did speak about Israel, and he would say to his son, without an Israel, there is no us. I asked him, did he think it was time to share that with his son? He said yes. I'm going to put up this challenge. If you care about Israel, maybe it's time for you to tell your family your why, because if you don't, who will? I have an idea for you to make this a little easier, because I know that it could be hard, right, to share your values with your children and grandchildren. It's not something we typically talk about. Jewish National Fund has a donor-advised fund program. What is that? It's a charitable savings account. You make contributions into the account, you get a tax deduction when you do, but then you can make donations out of the account to Jewish National Fund and any charity of your choice in the United States. Why do I bring that up? What if you have your family come over for Hanukkah one of the nights? You have a tzedakah night, and you tell each of your family members, you can give a certain amount of money from my donor advised fund, but you have to come to the table and tell me your charity and tell me your why. And over the years, you'll be doing the same. You'll be sharing with your family where you're making your donations and what your story behind your generosity is. And maybe, after many years, Israel will become as important to them as it is to you. I know this is a lot. I just wanted to give you something to think about. I help people like you every day. No question is too small. My cards are out on the table. I hope you will consider giving me a call. I'm happy to be of help to you and your family. I can act as a facilitator or anything like that. The truth of the matter is, we could not do this without you. You're the backbone of the work we do in Israel. And I want to thank you for that. And I especially want to thank the legacy members for thinking about all of our collective futures. So thank you. I know I've been talking about Israel a lot. If you're thinking about going to Israel this year, I am leading a trip, June 4th through the 13th. It's called the Sunshine Tour. It's for active adults over 55. We have a limited number of spots, so I hope you'll look into it sooner rather than later. We will visit Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. We'll go to the north, the Golan, the Galil, especially also down into the south. It's a super trip, 10 days. Please look into it. Give me a call. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me. I want to let you know, you're in for a real treat with Elan, and I'm going to ask Fred to come up and introduce him. Thank you.
So thank you very much for all your hard work. It really has made a huge difference. We are very excited and really privileged to have a very special guest with us today. Our speaker is an influential voice on key policy matters with extensive experience as a senior U.S. diplomat, criminal prosecutor, military officer, and community leader. In 2019, he was appointed United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. As the senior diplomatic representative of the United States and the chief advisor to the Secretary of State regarding anti-Semitism, he directed U.S. policy and programs aimed at combating it. He previously served as a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He is an officer in the United States Army Reserve. Thank you for your service in that regard as well. And has received multiple awards for his nearly 2 decades of military service. Please welcome on the stage, Elan Carr.
Thank you, Fred. And thank you, members of the board, members of the local board, members of the national board. Thank you to our wonderful staff, Cynthia, Matt. I want to recognize our LA director and my AEPI brother, Nouriel Shor, my old friend. I'm so proud of the work you're doing. And although he's not here, I have to recognize my other AEPI brother, JNF CEO Russell Robinson. How lucky are we to have him? What a prodigious leader of JNF and of the Jewish people. And thank you all for being here and for your commitment to this wonderful cause. It's good to be among friends, and among very close friends, I have to make special recognition of three guests here, very important to me. My in-laws are here, and my mother is here. And I recognize them not only because, well, you know, that's what a good Jewish boy does, but there's a story there too. My mother-in-law is the daughter not only of Holocaust survivors, of Auschwitz survivors. My father-in-law fled anti-Semitic communist persecution in Romania. And my mother, as a young girl in Iraq, watched my grandfather, her father, be arrested, paraded through the streets in leg irons, and thrown into prison. She, as a young girl, was a refugee fleeing with my grandmother and my uncle across the Iranian border, receiving the protection of the Shah of Iran, and then emigrated to Israel. So you see, anti-Semitism is something that has been with us for a very, very long time. And that personal story of mine and my background that has so shaped my worldview and my commitments is why I was especially honored to be appointed by the President of the United States and the Secretary of State to lead America's fight against this ancient, recurring, indefatigable sickness that is Jew hatred. Who would have imagined that less than 8 decades since the end of the most notorious crime in the history of the world that took 2/3 of the Jews of Europe, that anti-Semitism would be rising even in Europe, and yes, even right here in the most philo-Semitic country, one of the most philo-Semitic countries in history, the United States. But it is rising, and it's rising rapidly. So what is going on? How can we make sense of this? What is driving this pathology? Well, anti-Semitism is being driven by 3 ideological camps that couldn't be different one from the other. We are seeing anti-Semitism rise from the supremacists of the far right. These are the neo-Nazis who engage in torchlit marches that we see in Eastern Europe, the likes of which we thought we had long since graduated from. They occupy the most vile, despicable chat rooms on the internet. And they are the chief source of violence. In fact, the source of lethal violence against Jews in the United States. From Halle, Germany, to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Poway, California, these haters have taken lives, innocent lives, attacking synagogues on Shabbat, on Yom Kippur. And they are propagating, they are multiplying, they are becoming increasingly more radicalized. We are seeing anti-Semitism rise from militant Islam, what has been a constant for the last century. The very same ideology, the potent mixture of ethnic supremacism and religious fanaticism that my family in Iraq experienced so directly, but that is with us throughout the world. It is the chief source of violence against Jews in Western Europe. It is the reason that when I emerged from a synagogue in Paris after delivering a speech during Kabbalat Shabbat services, I was told by a fellow congregant, take off your kippah. You should not be wearing a kippah on the streets of Paris. Now, I won't pass judgment about whether it is or is not safe to wear a kippah, whether that advice is well taken or not, but the fact that a Jewish synagogue goer would think that a kippah should not be worn in Paris, well, that tells you all you need to know. I left my kippah on, by the way. And anti-Semitism is rising from a new and powerful force, a radical left ideology that focuses usually on Zionism and Israel, but far more broad than that. This is a neo-Marxist ideology that accords certain groups of people categorical victimhood and other groups of people categorical status as oppressors and usurpers. This is usually described in terms of white privilege, and for this ideology, Jewish white privilege occupies a special noxious place. in the hierarchy of oppression. This ideology has swept the world. It is increasingly mainstream. It is dominant on campuses and in high schools. It is preached in classrooms. And our students, our treasured kids, whom we entrust to institutions of learning, are being indoctrinated constantly with this poisonous anti-Semitic ideology. You know what constantly means? A kid at a premier university, really the best as it gets, gave me the answer sheet to his math class. I have a copy. It says, you know, the derivative of so-and-so is such and such, the integral of such and such is so-and-so, and then it says another day in the occupied Palestinian territory, Zionist forces murdering children, and then it goes back to math. And the kid who gave this to me, in a voice reflecting utter exhaustion, said, in math class, I can't even escape this? In math class? That's right. That's right. Even in math class, you can't escape it, because like the old primitive medieval anti-Semitism, the new anti-Semitism is just as maniacal, just as obsessive, just as irrational in its focus on its Jewish target. And let me tell you, it's having an effect. A survey conducted by one of the most respected pollsters in America reveals that Jewish university students in America today are less supportive of Israel than ever before measured, more inclined to identify with Israel's enemies than ever before measured. And the crisis, their words, the crisis identified in the evangelical Christian community, I heard this all the time. I would be literally interrupted during fora in Washington by pastors, Christian pastors, who would say, let me tell you what's going on. We raise our children to be philo-Semitic and pro-Israel as a matter of faith. For us, it's theology. And then we send them away to college and they come back turned. That's the crisis they're talking about. I spoke at a pro-Israel rally a few years ago. An evangelical Christian kid ran up to me. He said, I'm here to volunteer. Thank you for your remarks. I love Israel. I'm here to, my friends are here with me. I said, I have a question for you. Is it true what I'm hearing? That your generation of Christians are less supportive of Israel than your parents' generation? He said, oh my goodness, of course it's true. It's all around us. I said, tell me, Matthew, why is that? You know what he said to me? He said, because we also go to college. We hear it all the time. A drumbeat of anti-Semitic indoctrination, even in math class. And lest anyone think that what is happening on campus is short-lived or relegated to the student world, not our world, their world, I will tell you about the single most disturbing meeting I had during my time as U.S. Special Envoy, and that's saying a lot. In this business, you have disturbing meetings. I met with a UK Labour MP, not Jewish, and a real hero. This was at the time when Jeremy Corbyn and an anti-Semitic cabal had taken over the Labour Party in the UK, and the future of the Jewish community in the UK was in doubt. Literally, that's what they said. The Jewish leaders said our survival as Jews in the United Kingdom is in jeopardy because that man might occupy 10 Downing Street. And this MP walked out of the Labour Party because the MP said, I will not sit at the table with anti-Semites. And in my meeting with this MP, the MP's words were, this disaster that we have in England all started on the campuses. And we did nothing because we said, you know, it's only students. And then it moved into the Labour Party. And we did nothing because we said it's only a far left fringe, it'll pass. And today they won and we lost, and I no longer have a political party. I want you to know my hair stood on end. What a clarion call to us in America and to the urgency we have to accord this fight. And the time is now. Now look, I didn't come here to rain on your parade. If I weren't an optimist, I wouldn't have taken that federal appointment to fight Jew hatred. If I weren't an optimist, I wouldn't be continuing to fight it in my capacity as a member of the advisory board of the Combating Antisemitism movement. through my work with AEPI, through my work with JNF. I am an optimist because I've seen and I know what measures can be employed that can roll back this rising scourge. But we have to do it, and we have to do the right thing. Let me go through a few of those most critical measures. Number one, Fred mentioned I was an army officer. Well, anyone who's ever been a soldier will tell you that if you want to beat your enemy, you have to know your enemy. If you want to confront a threat, you have to understand a threat. And that means defining anti-Semitism. Well, thankfully, we have a vehicle for doing that. A global gold standard put forth by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA or IRA, the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. And let me tell you what the power of that definition is. Included therewith, as an inseparable part of the definition, are 11 examples of how anti-Semitism is typically manifested in our times. And those examples capture not only the old medieval kind of anti-Semitism, you know, Jews responsible for every malady and misfortune of the human condition. We saw this, of course, in COVID. When the world moved online, there was a tsunami of anti-Semitic venom on the internet and social media blaming Jews for inventing the virus, spreading the virus, profiting from the virus. Well, not only is that an example of anti-Semitism, also blaming Jews for conspiratorial and malevolent control over this or that institution of our society, but the examples also capture the so-called new anti-Semitism. And so, I quote, denying the Jewish people the right of self-determination, for example, by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor, an example of anti-Semitism. Equating the state of Israel to that of Nazi Germany, an example of anti-Semitism. Holding the state of Israel to a double standard to which no other democracy in the world is held, an example of anti-Semitism. See, that's the real power of the IRA definition, and I'm proud to say that because of our efforts in government, out of government, over 1,100 entities across the world have adopted the IRA definition, including over 35 countries, one of which is the United States, adopted by the Obama administration, its application broadened by the Trump administration, and doubled down on by the Biden administration. How often does that happen? That's right, deserves applause. Over 400 provincial and municipal governments, including a majority of US states. I'm proud to say that only a few days ago, the General Assembly of Virginia, House and Senate, passed an adoption of IRA for the state of Virginia that Governor Youngkin will soon be signing. And I'm going to be there in Richmond with Governor Youngkin for that signing. Over 400 NGOs and universities and sports teams and other kind of institutions. And so IRA and its adoption is a global movement, and it makes a difference. The IRA definition isn't about censorship, God forbid. For us in America, the First Amendment is a gift and not a burden. We don't believe in censorship. Even the most vile and despicable speech is typically protected by the First Amendment. But the IRA definition is about recognizing the vile speech, calling it out, condemning it for what it is, and educating it, including kids in schools, about what anti-Semitism is and how it manifests. IRA. Second, we have to have anti-radicalization programs for criminal defendants who are on a path of hate and violence. There are many of them. I was shocked in my role as special envoy. I met with leaders across the world. I met with law enforcement leaders from 7 separate German states, and I met with law enforcement leaders throughout the United States. And very often I was told, look, we don't know what to do about these hate-filled defendants, especially if it's a misdemeanor. You know, vandalism is a misdemeanor. What can you do? There's no teeth. What do you do about that? Or juveniles. Well, let me tell you what you do about that. And this is what I conveyed to every single leader I met with. You've got to force these defendants to undergo tolerance programs. I was a gang prosecutor in Los Angeles, but I also prosecuted hate crimes. Let me tell you, there was not a single case where a criminal defendant or even a suspect pre-filing showed signs of ethnic or religious or sexual identity-based hatred where I did not force that individual to undergo a tolerance program. I sent them to the Museum of Tolerance. I sent many, many, many kids, young men. They're all, I'm gender specific for a reason. They're men and they're young, almost always. And I send them to the Museum of Tolerance. Does it work 100% of the time? Nothing works 100% of the time. But I will tell you, some of these kids have had their lives changed. Do you think they have the foresight to understand what path they're on, where this leads? Many of them were shaken to their cores to see it up close and personal. How could we possibly let defendants and suspects like that go without forcing them to undergo a program like that? My goodness, they make you go to traffic school. They should make you go to something like this. I testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on this issue. And I said, DOJ, look, not every city has a Museum of Tolerance. DOJ and state DOJs should be funding online anti-radicalization programs so that every single criminal defendant and suspect in America can undergo such a program. Do you know what a gift that would be? It would be a gift. It would be a gift for public safety. But let me tell you, it would be a gift for that young man too. To rescue, to intervene and rescue that young man from the utter destruction that the path he is walking will lead him. Third, anti-BDS laws. Let me be clear about what BDS is. You know, it's nuanced. Well, there are boycotts and protests. And let me tell you what BDS is. Kauft nicht bei Juden. Don't buy from the Jew. That's what it is. It is the same version that we saw in the Middle Ages. It's the same as we saw in those pictures of brown shirts in front of Jewish stores. Don't buy from the Jew. That's what BDS is. And a majority of US states have laws that say, you know what, you want to boycott Israel, have at it. But if you do, you're not going to do business with us. In fact, a number of states have laws mandating the divestment of state pension plans from any company that engages in a boycott of Israel. You want to know how effective that is? Just ask Unilever. When Ben & Jerry's stopped selling to Israel, their parent company, Unilever, was brought to its knees. They watched their stocks plummet because not small pension plans like Florida's and Texas and New York said, we're out. You want to do that? We're out. We're divesting. We're selling your stock. You know what the company did? They were so eager to fix this problem, they sold the entire interest in Ben & Jerry's to Avi Zinger, the Israeli distributor. They're like, we're out of here. We don't want any part of it. Just ask Airbnb. Airbnb said, if you're a Jew in Judea and Samaria, you can't list your apartments with us. If you're an Arab, you can, but a Jew can't. You know what happened to Airbnb? Well, they changed their tune real quick when multiple states said, that's it. You're on our list. We're not doing business with you. We are today, as we speak, engaged in a fight with a new and pernicious kind of BDS. I call it backdoor BDS. That is being injected into our financial world through ESG investing. You've all heard of Morningstar, Titanic financial investment firm. Well, they acquired an ESG rating subsidiary called Sustainalytics. Sustainalytics is infected with anti-Israel bias from top to bottom. You want to hear how bad it is? Israeli banks are being put on human rights watch lists because they finance projects in Judea and Samaria. Israeli companies like Elbit and Motorola, which, by the way, make life-saving surveillance technology to prevent terror attacks. We just lost an American citizen in Bikat HaYarden to a terrorist attack, to a shooting. Motorola and Elbit make life-saving surveillance technologies that save Arabs as well as Jews. For that crime, they are put on Sustainalytics Morningstar human rights watch list and given controversy ratings. This is a deep, dangerous threat to the state of Israel, and we won't have it. We won't have it. The Jewish community is coming together, and we're saying no. And we're in talks with Morningstar, and there are states that are investigating Morningstar. State attorneys general and governors and state treasurers investigating Morningstar. So anti-BDS laws, critical. Third, the internet and social media. You know why anti-Semitism is rising? Because it's being driven by the most powerful vector of pretty much every societal malady you can name. You know, a hater in the old days to gain adherence used to actually have to do work. You know, you had to organize a rally, sit down with people, have lunches. Not nice as this, they don't spend money on lunches, but they had to actually do work. Now, these miscreants at the speed of a click can drive their hate throughout the world, getting tens of thousands of likes and shares, and have real influence. You want to know how much influence? We have data. A European study found that the period of time required to radicalize an individual to violent action, to actually undertake violent action, is a fraction of the time when that radicalization is done online as opposed to traditional offline means. That's why I'm proud, together with my boss, Secretary Mike Pompeo, to have organized the first ever US government-sponsored conference on combating online hate. And let me tell you, there are relationships today that were created in that conference that are having a real impact. There were real solutions put forth in that conference that are having a real impact. Solutions like voluntarily channeling advertising dollars away from platforms hosting this drivel. Like measuring, using sophisticated data analytics to measure the volumes of hate on the internet. Turns out the way this spreads, it's not even. It's very much like a public health model. There are super spreader hubs. And if you concentrate the opposing messaging to certain areas, you can stifle it. You can stop the spread. It's about having partnerships between the internet platforms. Right after our conference, because of what we discussed, Facebook changed its policies. Holocaust denial is now regarded as anti-Semitism. And these platforms can be used as powerful tools of education, referring users to credible third-party sources of information, to learn the IRA definition, or the US Holocaust Memorial Museum. We have got to address the infection, the contagion that is being spread by the internet and social media. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, the state of California has not adopted the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. The state of California does not have an anti-BDS law that requires the divestment from of its pension plans from BDS supporting company. You know, this is something that all of us can advocate for together. Advocacy is powerful. Even the Los Angeles City Council passed unanimously an adoption of the IRA definition. LA did that. Why doesn't California do it? Why doesn't California join the majority and do that? These are things that we can do. We can take this to our leaders and we can have an impact. But I want to point something out. These measures that I've talked about, did you notice something they all have in common? Defining anti-Semitism, countering the hate on the internet. I could have talked about other measures, you know, safety for Jewish communities, protecting Jewish kids on campus, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. We issued an executive order to do that, all important stuff. But you know what all of these things have in common? They are all inherently defensive. Now, defense is important. When you're confronting an onslaught like Jew hatred, you've got to defend. But I have a question for you. Has any war ever been won only by defending? Can you even win a football game without an offensive game? Of course not. And so a key part of this fight is going on the offense. How do you do that? How do you go on the offense against what is at its core an idea? It's a worldview. It's, I would argue, a spiritual sickness. You know how you go on the offense against that? By proactively, affirmatively, aggressively driving a philo-Semitic narrative that breeds an understanding of, an appreciation of, an affection for the breathtaking, stunning story of the Jewish people. That miraculous biblical story and the values of Judaism that have transformed civilization. The existence of the United States of America could not be explained without those values. Not our founding, not our continuing self-definition, not our mission in the world, not our most important moments like the civil rights movement. None of them could be explained without the Jewish story and Jewish values that were explicitly, not implicitly, explicitly embraced by the leaders of those movements. And the story of England or of France or of Poland or of Russia or of Germany or of Hungary cannot be told without the Jewish story. That's how you go on the offense, to shout from the rooftops who we are and what we have done and what we bring to the world. When I was in my government role, the Federal Republic of Germany commemorated, are you ready for this? 1,700 years of Jewish history in Germany. And so I worked with our German interlocutors on that. And we were asking questions like, how can we make this more than a January proclamation that we then quickly forget? What's going to be the content, the curriculum, so that every kid in every classroom in every city in Germany knows that it's 1,700 years and knows a little bit about those 1,700 years. The deep, profound influence of Jews on Germany, and incidentally, vice versa. I asked the question of the German leaders, how many kids in this country know that the vernacular language of Ashkenazi Judaism from Russia to England is a form of German? The answer is pretty much none of them does. Why is that? And now let's bring it home. How about here in the United States? I helped launch a philo-Semitism program right here at home, and don't we desperately need it? Here's the punchline. Do you know there's a period of time in our country every year for doing this? You can't make this up, for 42 years, every single president of the United States, all of them, authorized by bipartisan Congresses, have declared a period of time for celebrating Jewish heritage and culture and its influence in the United States. It used to be called Jewish Heritage Week, and since 2006, it's called Jewish American Heritage Month. Now, don't be embarrassed. I've asked rooms full of senior Jewish leaders, and I get blank stares on this. Now, I bet you all heard of Black History Month. You did, imagine that. You've all heard of Black History Month. You know why? Because there are public service announcements. LAX is decorated, all of LAX is decorated with this. Netflix does a program, Google has a doodle. There are classroom curricula, there are posters. Actually, for Black History Month, something happens. Jewish American Heritage Month, silence. We've got to be crazy. You know, it's not the president's fault, they declare it. It's up to us to infuse it with real content. And at a time when anti-Semitism is rising, don't we need that so desperately? And so now we are working to federalize and localize Jewish American Heritage Month. We now have multiple governors, yes, it's exciting. We have multiple governors declaring Jewish American Heritage Month for their states. It was done in Florida, it was done in Nebraska, it was done in Virginia, it's been done in multiple states, and I'm proud to say that one of my heroes, Mayor LeVar Stoney of Richmond, Virginia, decided to take this on to such an extent that he sent a letter to every single U.S. mayor in the U.S. Conference of Mayors saying, I will be declaring Jewish American Heritage Month for Richmond, Virginia. Please join me. That is a game changer. You want to really fight Jew hatred? You want to win not a tactical or defensive victory, but a strategic victory in this fight? This is how you do it. This is how you take the fight to the enemy. By shouting from the rooftops who we are and what we have done. And when it comes to that project, that philo-Semitic project, what organization does it better than JNF? JNF leads the way on philo-Semitism, on bringing Jewish communities together, on investing in Jewish peoplehood, Jewish heritage, and yes, investing in the Jewish homeland. Cynthia mentioned trees. 250 million trees planted by JNF in a century, 250 million. 250,000 acres of Eretz Israel developed by JNF. Thousands of communities built and developed and accorded critical infrastructure because of you and your investment. From the Galil to the Negev, JNF is leading the way in making the desert bloom the way it always has made the desert bloom. You know what magic that is? It's magic for Israel, but JNF is also building that unbreakable, inseparable bond between the diaspora and Israel. Exactly how it should be in Am Yisrael. JNF has the answer to this, to fighting Jew hatred and to fight anti-Semitism. And Alexander Muss High School, my goodness, we talked about the problems in school and campuses. Even to that, JNF has the answer. To take the cream of the crop, the best kids we have, and bring them to Israel in this wonderful program. Alexander Muss High School, whose mission is that the land becomes the classroom. They take them on hikes. They read the Tanakh and take them to the places where those things happen, and they walk the land. They walk the land in the way that God said to Abraham in Parashat Lech Lecha, arise and walk yourself through the land, kum hitalech ba'aretz le'orka ule'rochba, to its full length and its full breadth, because you know something? To get to know a place and to get to love a place, you have to walk it, live it, experience it. You're doing that. And you're doing that in a way that is changing the game and producing leaders for our people. We heard just the other day, Cynthia, thank you for inviting him, in Orange County in a lunch yesterday. One of the alumni of Alexander Muss High School, the most impressive kid you could imagine. He's a senior from an Orange County school, but he spent a semester abroad at Alexander Muss. He took to the podium and he said, I want you to know what this did for me. It changed my life. It made me love Israel. And you know what I'm doing right after I graduate? In this coming June, I'm graduating. I'm getting on a plane, and I'm going to serve in the IDF. This is an American kid. That's how you win. And that's what JNF gets done better than anyone else every single day. And so when you're asking what you can do and where you can give your money and what causes you can embrace, what is better than this? In a day and a half, on Shabbat, Jews around the world will gather, as we do every year for the Shabbat before Purim, and read, in addition to the parasha of the week, Parashat Zachor. It's a chilling mitzvah, and it is a mitzvah. Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek baderech betzeitchem mimitzrayim. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way when you came out of Egypt. Amalek, who is Amalek? The eternal, quintessential anti-Semite. But it's a chilling mitzvah because it says, remember Amalek, and then just 2 psukim later it says, do not forget. It's chilling. And it begs a question, why Amalek? Why Amalek? What's so special about Amalek? I mean, why not remember the Egyptians? They weren't nice to us. Not only slavery, but literally maybe the first genocide. Drowning Hebrew babies in the Nile. That's worth remembering. Remember the Egyptians. That's not what it says. It doesn't say remember the Moabites or the Hittites or the Canaanites. It says remember Amalek. Why? The next pasuk tells you why. What did Amalek do to you? Asher karcha baderech vayzanev becha kol hanichshalim acharecha. Who nipped at your heels and cut down the weak stragglers who fell behind. Ve'ata ayef ve'yagea, and you were weak and weary. You see, the real power and the real danger and the real threat of Amalek, the ultimate anti-Semite, is that he preys on our weakness, on our loss of unity. Stragglers left behind, we're not talking about wildebeest in the Serengeti. It means being spiritually left behind. It means forgetting who we are, our people, our commitment, our heritage, our God, and our land. That's what it means. Amalek preys on us when we forget that, and that's why we have to remember, and that's why that anti-Semite, like all anti-Semites, are such a threat. Ve'ata ayef ve'yagea. And lest there be any doubt, the name Amalek in Gematria has the same value as another word in Hebrew, safek, doubt. You see, Amalek preys upon our doubt in ourselves, our doubt in our mission, our doubt in our unity, our doubt in our connection to our homeland. And I know that with your activism, with your commitment not only to JNF, but to what JNF represents, your commitment to the Jewish people, I know that we will banish that doubt, that we won't have stragglers left behind, that we will stand together, ish echad belev echad, as it said the Jewish people stood at the foot of Mount Sinai, together as one, and that we will defeat, strategically defeat, that eternal darkness of anti-Semitism. And so I thank you for all that you do, chazak uvaruch. Thank you for your commitment, thank you for everything you do, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm grateful to you.
Thank you so much for coming, for listening, learning. Thank you, Elan. We really appreciate all that you do for Jewish National Fund USA and Israel. We could not do it without your partnership. Thanks for coming to the luncheon, and we'll see you next year.